I am
Got a minute to go.
vice chair of two organizations. I never ever had to do anything. It's great.
I might be stuck for this for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me just get a little bit ready here, which I think I am.
I always think of that line from Animal House when he's reading the oath. I state your name, and I'll say state your name.
So you had the three people that you're going to swear in,
Yeah,
which we will do very early in the agenda.
at the beginning,
Yeah,
Right.
very beginning.
right,
Roll call. That would be
right after roll call.
oath of office. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oath of office, yes. Okay. Good evening, everybody. In compliance with the Open Public Meeting Act of 1975, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided. If any member has reason to believe this meeting is being held in violation of that act, they should state so at this time. Hearing none, I will ask you all to join us in the Pledge Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Judy, could we have a roll call?
Just an announcement that Warren Copeland is absent, Pip Campbell is absent, B. Pisagno is absent, and Deputy Mayor Lorraine Baldwin will not be joining us tonight. She has another meeting. Mr. Carroll.
Here.
Mr. Cogswell.
Here.
Ms. Wilson-Strudek.
Here.
Mr. Testa.
Here.
Mr. Stevenson.
Here.
Mr. Becker.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. You all received minutes from the November meeting in your email. These were ones that were corrected by Jim and republished. You've had a chance to look at them. Is there a motion to accept
Gotta do
those
this first.
meetings?
You might want to do the reorg.
Got to swear the officers in.
Right.
Okay. All right.
You want to do the reorg first?
Yes. I'm going to do the oath of office first, and then we'll come back to the minutes. Sorry about that. Bob, would you take over with swearing in our
Yes.
three reappointed members?
We have Joe Stevenson, James Testa, and Janice Spritta. Would you please rise and raise your right hand? I'm going to read the oath, and please repeat after me. I state your name.
I, James Testa,
Do solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the state of New Jersey,
and the state of New Jersey,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
and to the governments established in the United States
and to the government established in the United States
and in this state,
and in this state,
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
and that I will faithfully,
that I will faithfully,
impartially,
partially,
and justly perform all the duties
justly perform all the duties
of the office of Historic Preservation Commission member
of Historic Preservation
Commission member,
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability,
and that I will not use my office
and I will
not use my office
to grant preferential treatment,
to grant preferential treatment,
nor to seek personal gain,
or to seek personal gain,
favor, or advantage
favor, or advantage
not available to the general public.
not available to the general public.
So help me God.
So help me God.
You're sworn in. Thank you.
I'm always amazed that our oath of office is actually shorter than the President of the United States, but that's probably more people writing it. We are at our reorganization meeting, and this is where we appoint our new officers. The current chairman of the HPC is Warren Copeland, and he's off on a family emergency, but I have had all good communications with him, and if we nominate and reelect him, it would be fine with him. So I will make a nomination that we nominate Warren Copeland to be chairman of our HPC.
Second. We're all rushing to second the motion.
Numerous second motions. Any objections? Do we need a roll call vote on this, Judy?
You do.
Okay, roll call vote.
I'll say motion by Mr. Carroll, seconded by Ms. Wilson Stridick. Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Thank you.
Do we have a nomination for somebody to serve as the vice chairman?
Well, since you have been doing this job and presumably are willing to continue to doing it, I will nominate Tom Carroll to serve as vice chairman of the HPC.
I'll second that.
Are there any other motions for vice chairman? Okay, Judy, vote, roll call vote, please.
Motion by Mr. Testa, seconded by Mr. Cogswell. Mr. Carroll?
Yes. Oh,
Mr.
excuse me, I abstain.
Okay. Mr. Cogswell?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Thank you.
Now, you probably can vote for yourself, but
Well, you probably can. I was thinking of saying no. We're up to the appointment of our solicitor, and lawyer Robert Feinberg has been with us for years, and we do have it off the record that he would be willing to stay with us. So could I have a nomination for him or somebody else?
let's put it on the record that Bob Feinberg be nominated to serve as solicitor to the HPC again.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Motion by Mr. Testa, seconded by Mr. Becker. Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Thank you.
Let me just say that it's very appreciated, and it continues to be a real honor and an education to serve with this organization. Thank you.
And we thank you for the continued education you give to us. Now we're up to the official newspaper for the commission. Currently, it's the Star and Wave. Is there any motion for that or anything else?
I will move that we continue with the Star and Wave.
Second? Janice? Okay,
Absolutely.
all right, roll call vote.
Motion by Mr. Cogswell. Was that you, Janice, as second?
Yeah. Well,
Seconded by Ms. Wilson Stridick. Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick?
yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm not going to work too hard on the dates for next year. You have received them, and please put them in your calendar. There's a few things due to holidays that we've had to move around, but normally we will be meeting on the third Tuesday of every month. And other than that, that should be our regular meeting time at 6 o'clock here. We also have a review committee that tries to keep our applications rolling along. Currently, Corbin, myself, Warren, and John have been serving on that, rotating, and we will welcome others to join that when there is a shortage. So let's approve the review committee. Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Okay. Judy?
Motion by Mr. Carroll, seconded by Ms. Wilson Stridick. Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Could I also have a motion to approve our meeting dates?
So moved. Second.
Okay. Moved and second. John and Corbin, second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson? Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Thank you.
Now we'll get into the approval of the minutes from November, which I mentioned earlier, that were corrected and presented to you in the mail that went out. Any other additions or corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move that we adopt the minutes as were amended and sent out today.
Thank you.
Second? Second.
By-
Motion by Mr. Coxwell, seconded by Mr. Stevenson. Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Coxwell?
Yes,
Ms. Wilson Stridick?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Thank you.
Resolutions prepared by our attorney. Marks 821 Washington Street, 1092/2021-22, resolution number 2022-52. Hobro Inc., 301 South Beach Avenue, 1014/13, resolution 2022-53. Appointment of solicitor to the commission, resolution 2023-01. Is there a motion to approve those resolutions?
So moved.
By John,
second.
by Corbin. Roll
Motion-
call, please.
Motion by Mr. Becker, seconded by Mr. Coxwell. Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Coxwell?
Yes,
Ms. Wilson Stridick?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson? Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Thank you.
You have all received the applications approved by the review committee, which is almost a full page of paper. I would just like to announce at this time that with Cape May on this big upswing and property changes and everything, the number of applications coming in are almost a boggle to our imagination of how many we work on. So we rely heavily on people in the review committee, which are meeting every Tuesday morning and spending a few hours trying to see what we can approve to make sure it meets our standards and would not need to come to the board, which is a savings of application money for the people that get that, and also reducing the time waiting for those of you who are here tonight that want to have your presentation. So is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the actions of the review committee.
Second?
Seconded by John. Roll call vote, please.
Motion by Mr. Coxwell, seconded by Mr. Becker. Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Coxwell?
Yes,
Ms. Wilson Stridick?
Yes, although I abstain on 26.5 Congress Street, and that name is DeMario, not DeMarco.
Thank you. Mr. Testa?
Yes, with respect to all except Von Seacom, 1505 New Jersey, on which I abstain.
Thank you. Mr. Stevenson?
Yes on all with I exempt myself from 432 Congress Street.
Thank you. Mr. Becker?
Yes, except for abstaining Cataldo at 1109 Washington Street, since his property, that property abuts mine.
Thank you very much.
With those recusals and a slight correction to the one name, the resolution stands approved. Okay, I'm happy to report now we are ready to go into old business. And our first application is 409 Elmira LLC, 409 Elmira Street, Block 1060, Lot 33, non-conforming New Jersey, new three-story mixed-use building.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Could I just make sure all mics are on?
Getting there.
Okay, get there. And would you all three identify yourself very clearly so our secretary can get those names down?
Joe, you want to start?
Joseph Schulte. Louis DeLasso.
And Anthony Monzo.
And your different positions on this presentation are?
Joseph Schulte, owner. Louis DeLasso, architect.
And attorney for the applicant.
Thank you. You've been with us before. You're back now hoping for a final approval. We went through many different things in the last hearings. If you could give us an update and go through your new drawings and see, and indicate where you've made the changes that have come up in the previous meetings.
Okay, first, Mr. Chairman, thank you, and congratulations to those of you who have been reappointed to your positions. We were here in September initially for conceptual approval, and with the input of the commission, several suggestions were made, which were taken back. We adjourned that hearing. We came back in October with various changes, including lowering the height of the building, creating dormer-style designs for the second floor of the residential units, adding more windows on the south side of the building, eliminating a deck expansion over the parking areas, eliminating one of the parking spaces in front, and adding some decorative hardscaping and landscaping in the front to create just a better visual. And the one thing that was still at issue was whether the parking, which was back-out parking onto Elmira, was acceptable. I know the commission kind of deferred to the planning board as to the safety issues. We did appear before the planning board in November, actually, I think it was late October. And they did approve the plan as presented to the commission. We had a traffic engineer who provided expert testimony as to the safety features with the back-out parking, with the two traffic controls at each intersection in that small block, and he believed also that that going off of Osborne Court would probably be a less safe condition since it's one way and it has bus traffic. So he provided good testimony for that. The board accepted it. So no changes were made from the last time we were here, except that the commission did want to see the building lowered by 3 feet, which was done, and it was approved by the planning board at a little bit above 31 feet in height, and Mr. DeLasso will explain that. Bollards were added at the parking areas, which we have some details if the commission would like to see them. We didn't include it in the package because we had large prints and we didn't want to submit the large drawings with the package. And I think that's it. And there are some sign details that may change, and maybe the commission would want to see that now or maybe look at it later in review committee. So with that background, I will ask Mr. DeLasso to give further explanation as to those changes.
Thank you. Looking at the exhibits that we sent in or submitted, E1, the overall site view basically indicates the fact that the center parking space has been removed and is a walkway with a planter and a street tree on that side now, as well as providing we also provided additional landscaping under the building and in the back of the building. It also indicates the pavers, we're using one type of paver for the 2 commercial spaces on the left, and then the residential spaces on the right have brick pavers around them with grasscrete in the center of them. That's on E1. E2 is just a perspective. What we did is we removed the part of the deck that was coming out towards the street so that they're basically the same type of deck on either side, as better illustrated on E3 and E4. E4 really does look at that where both decks are similar on either side, and also indicates or shows how the building has come down in height. Well, if you remember, originally we were 37 feet. We took it down to 31 feet 11 inches in height. And at the suggestion, I believe, of the chairman, we looked at aligning the ridges so that that's all taken place on this in that elevation. If you look at E6, oops, yes, that shows the street tree, but I'm looking for, yeah, E10 is there was a suggestion to add more windows to the side of the building that was adjacent to the bike place or store. And you see what we've done there with the additional windows there with the symmetry of those window situation. So basically, when we did that, if you also look, and I apologize for going back and forth on this thing. I have half plots, but if you look at E6, the rendering, you'll not only see the street tree and the planters, but you'll see bollards across the front along Elmira Street. And I have details of those bollards as well as the implantation and foundation of the bollards, and also details of the sign lighting and sign material that Mr. Hurlis from the Planning Board has been requesting, that I have here in half plots that I can give copies to, for each of you if you desire.
Right, see, right in here. Hitting right in that area. Black. Oh, it's just-
And just for the record, what Mr. Delasso was going through, all of that except for the height being lower, and it was all presented at the last hearing when the board looked at it conceptually before we went to the planning board.
So other than the changes that you've just presented to us, are there any other changes in materials or design features that we should be aware of?
No, the materials are the same. The aesthetics are the same. What I've been doing, as I have said, is corresponding with Mr. Hurlis, who has asked for further details on the site lighting, including the sign lighting. The material that is involved with the sign, I had, if you had noticed on the plans, the fact that we just have retail with a note saying that they would come back in front of the appropriate board for approval, whoever the tenant was. He wanted more definition, so I've indicated a sand-blasted wood sign or an HDU sign that would be there, but again, we're still recommending that whoever the tenant is would still have to come back in. But that, and then we also have the elbow lighting on the sign that directs down on the sign. Those are the details on these sheets that I just gave you.
Everybody understand what an HDU sign is?
High-density urethane.
The sandblasted 3D, that kind of...
Yes,
Yeah.
That's because I didn't know.
I'm sorry. Acronyms are the way of the world nowadays. If you look at the sheets that I gave you, you'll see that were just passed out, the site lighting information that Mr. Hurlis requested in the upper right-hand corner. If you look on the second sheet, you'll see the bollard that I'm proposing, along with the locations of the bollard. And then on the third sheet are the three different types of pavers and where they go on the plans. The final sheet there is indicating, are the elevations where the height is now indicated at the 31 feet, 11 inches overall height. But those are the changes that we've done, or modifications, I guess,
Okay.
is the best way of phrasing it.
I'm sorry, excuse me. Are these sheets you're submitting this evening, these are new? These were
Yes,
not
they
in the
are.
packet?
We'll mark that, we can mark them A1.
Thank you.
I have extras here if you'd like it for the copy. Okay.
Do you have any other board approvals other than the HBC at this point?
We have a planning board final and variances. One of the recommendations, they didn't like my planning plan, my landscaping plan. I've redone the landscaping plan. That will be submitted to the appropriate committee. And the sewer, water hookups have to be approved by that authority as well.
Mr. Chairman, I have the resolution from the planning board, if you want that as part of the record.
I think we'd like it as part of the record. I don't think we're going to make you read it.
Okay.
Oh, please, no.
I think it's kind of wordy.
Can you mark that A2, and this is A1?
very clear, we didn't make you read it.
Yes.
The one thing you can notice on here is that if you look at the zoning chart, the height of the building is listed at 31 feet, which I know was a big
11.
issue to try to bring it down as much as possible, and that was done by lowering ceiling height and making some modifications to the roof line.
And taking structures off the roof.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you, if our final approval includes returning to our review committee to present the signage and the exterior lighting, that would be acceptable to you, I'm sure?
Yes.
We are going back to the plan.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, discussion by board members?
Briefly, I think that you've taken pretty much every step that we've suggested to bring this building down in height, to make it not overly burdensome on Elmira Street. It's a really good-looking design as far as I'm concerned, and appreciate your responsiveness to the suggestions we've made. So
Thank you.
I think you did a really good job, and we were pretty tough on you when you first appeared, and because you had a building that had a hat on top of it, and now it doesn't. But it really looks much better, and you know, I would be prepared to support this for final approval, subject to
Okay.
to the additional material.
Jay?
I mirror Mr. Testa's sentiments.
Janice?
Well, I was just curious about some of the materials.
Want to turn your mic on?
Like the lattice on the HVAC enclosure. I mean, some of the materials, obviously, this is a non-contributing building, so we're not holding you to the standards that we would if it was a contributing building, correct?
We've eliminated the lattice at the HVAC enclosure.
You eliminated it?
Yeah, one of the concerns of the board and in the discussion was they were previously located on the roof, and they've been removed from the roof down to grade level and shielded with a fence from the bicycle next door, so there is no lattice there.
Okay. All right. I have
Anything
no
else?
other comments.
Corbin?
No,
John?
I think you've made all the revisions we requested.
Thank you.
Is there a motion?
So it goes without saying that I move that the application receive final approval, but subject to a return to the review committee when the final approvals have been received from the planning board on the landscaping, and was it the sewer hookup?
Signage.
The signage and the landscaping.
Second on the motion?
Second.
Discussion on the motion? Roll call, please.
Motion by Mr. Testa, seconded by Mr. Becker. Mr. Carroll.
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell.
yes,
Ms. Wilson Stridick.
Yes.
Mr. Testa.
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson.
Yes.
Mr. Becker.
Yes.
Thank you.
By the way, thank you for producing the photometrics with the light trespass levels. That was very nice to see.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For those of you in the audience, I would like to say, not all things go this fast, but these applicants have been with us 3 times now, and we've worked out a lot of details. So if other applications don't go quite as fast, you'll understand it might be the first time through. So the second thing on our agenda is Formica at 1125 New York Avenue, Block 1117, lots 22, 23, 24. This is a contributing structure, and it's for a rear addition.
Thank you. Good evening.
So once again, I'll ask you to introduce yourselves so that Judy can pick up names.
Sure. Mary Beth Formica, or Formica.
Michael Formica.
Joseph Corder.
So Mary Beth and Mike, you are the owners of the property,
Yes.
and Joe is the architect.
Architect, correct.
I should know.
Yes.
Okay, you have been with us before as well, and there was a lot of discussion that the new and the old section should have a distinguishing character to show where the new ends and or where the old ends and the new begins.
Correct.
And having looked at the plans, I know you could address that, but could you explain exactly what you've done for the board, Joe?
Yes, sure. Yeah, I guess you can see from the drawings that you have in your hand, but also the rendering I did, that what we've elected to do for the additions is to set it back, reduce the width of it, so that there's a break in the siding. And that break in the siding, obviously, with the light and the sun moving and stuff, it'd be quite obvious. So you can see the side there. Front facade stays the same. This is the original building, and the roof line, the siding, and everything, there's a break there.
Joe, I'm going to ask you to carry the microphone with you when you move to the diagrams.
I'm sorry.
And I'm going to ask you to step more to the right.
Yeah, so, okay, now, you can see it. Okay, the original building is right there. The addition is here, and it's set back 12 inches on both sides of the original house. So it's separated, and the siding and the roof line is totally set apart. So that it should be, it looks to me, and I hope it does to everyone, that you can tell what the original is and what the addition would be. I think that was the major issue last time that we were here.
Were there any other issues we brought up?
Yes,
at that time?
there were a few, and I think you've satisfied all of them, but I do have one question.
Sure.
So the other one was restoring or keeping the gable dormer and the bay window on the front, which had been eliminated in the prior scheme, so those are back. And also retaining the chimneys, which you've also apparently done, is that correct?
Yes, absolutely, yeah. The chimney is now restored.
So the only questions I have, I couldn't quite tell from the submission, the new windows you're calling out Geldwin, are they primed wood?
Yes.
Okay. And the only other question I have then is with regard to the fascia and soffits, which are called certainteed. So are those wood or are they vinyl?
Certainty, that's going to be wood.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Other comments by board members?
I'm glad that you pointed that out there, because I couldn't get the separation.
Oh, you can, yeah, but,
I mean, we're busy here trying to draw a line.
yes.
But this outlines it right. The addition that you've proposed is pretty significant to the overall structure, but I think you've done a good job in doing what we ask you to do, which is show us the new stuff relative to the old.
That's what I
And
attempted to
that
do.
makes me feel better, because I can pick out the old one.
Yes.
At least I can pick it out there,
Correct.
as opposed to here. So I think it's responsive to our prior comments.
If you look from the drone down into the plans, you can definitely see where that is brought in on both
Yeah,
sides.
I kind of like to look at the elevation pictures, and you can't really see it from there unless you start drawing your own lines.
The A4 definitely shows where it drops in on the back, which I think was the biggest point of discussion.
Yeah, in both cases where the addition meets the existing building as a 12-inch differentiation set, offset,
Yes,
clear. Yep.
yeah.
Any other board comments? Could I hear a motion that
Would we-
also
would-
includes the comments on primed windows? And
Well, we would do that, but doesn't the application for final need a full set of construction plans? If I don't, all I have is elevations here. Oh, no, here they are.
No, I think I submitted my floor plans and stuff, yes.
Uh-huh. They might be in the construction office. Would you like to make this a final?
No, I mean, I see now
review
that
of the,
I've missed these pages, but I thought it's standard for us with respect to a final application to be sure that the application has the final construction plans. having gone through all the, since Bob's shaking his head, at least I'm getting it right.
Here are the foot plans.
So I guess I would say, I would move this application for final approval, and it would be sure that it would have conditions subject to the certainty being wood. What was our second thing with respect to?
That the windows.
Windows,
Just be gelled.
primed wood,
And I
yes.
think that it does that actually, but there's a discrepancy. So subject to the windows being primed wood, gelled wood, and also to submission of the final construction plans.
I'll second that motion.
All to be put in front of the review committee for
It's
final.
been moved and second. Joe, do you understand the construction plans that need to come in for the final approval? Or are you looking at what I'm looking at now as the final?
Well, I mean, the final construction plans will have a lot more detailed information in terms of,
Okay.
But this would be, the floor plans and everything are correct. But as I say, when you have final plans, you submit a whole bunch of other construction details that aren't here.
And I think that becomes part of our final approval record.
Okay.
So you want the whole
The shebang.
complete set of construction plans.
That would be part of the condition of the approval, but
Fine.
we just submit it in, and the review committee will look it over to see that they are final
Make sure
construction plans.
everything is right. I mean, I remember when Skip was chairman, we looked at all the construction drawings on all approved plans.
But that they should be part of the record is really what I'm asking us to do, and that's, it's not going to delay the approval here. He's got the plans already. We did have a motion.
Who made the motion?
I think I did.
Motion by Mr. Testa,
John's second.
And it was clear that a final approval would be subject to the construction plans added to the application.
Right, and the two other pieces we noted.
the primed wood gel win windows, full set of construction plans.
And the
Two con-
certainty be wood.
Wood, correct.
Motion by
That's-
Mr.
I think it's an
Testa,
accurate description of the motion. That's what John seconded.
It is.
Okay.
motion by Mr. Testa, seconded by Mr. Becker. Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Coxwell?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mike and Mary Beth, good luck to you on that.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to the best town on the Jersey Shore.
Thank you.
Our next application is Mahalo Cape May LLC, 1033 Beach Avenue, Lot 111, Lot 1. This is non-conforming, and this is for roofs, fascia, windows, doors, railings, and decking.
That's non-contributing.
Non-contributing, yes. Yes, non-contributing. Give me just a minute. All right, if I could ask you all to identify yourselves, even though you've been here before.
Angelo at Christovest Builders.
Stephen Tomasetti, project architect.
My name is Mark Robbins, and I'm the development manager for Icona.
Did you get all that, Judy? No, but I'll ask later. Could you do that again so Judy can pick it up?
Camano, C-A-M-A-N-O.
Tomasetti, T-O-M-A-S-S-E-T-T-I.
Okay. Okay. This is another application that's been with us before, and we killed the elephant in the room by taking the solar panels off the roof, which would have been very, very visible. But we're ready to hear how you've adjusted your application to all the other comments that were brought up that night.
Thank you very much, Vice Chairman Carroll, for having us here. Thank you very much, board members. Happy New Year. I'm still in the holiday spirit, so I have to wish everybody the best of them.
Not a hangover, though.
So we adjusted we were asked to adjust the application in 4 ways. One, you call it the elephant in the room. We do have a follow-on question on solar panels, but it has been removed 100% from the application. There were 3 other questions. There was a question pertaining to the valance. It is in there under exhibit number 2. We advised the board that we had put up a sample, and on that sample, we were going to remove 2 rungs from it. And I think 1 or 2 of the board members said they were going to just do a drive-by to take a look to see what that was going to look like. The next question the board had was on the railing applique. We had a design previously that looked a little palm leafish. It was a little bit more narrow, and one of the board members thought that that did not fit in Cape May, and actually, the remark was it looked Hawaiian, so we kind of moved to something which was more standard. This is under Exhibit 5. It's pretty standard that you'll see just about anywhere. And then there is a drawing in Exhibit 5 showing it on all the railings. And then finally, on Exhibit 7, they were asking about what that rain curtain was going to look like. All we had was a photo rendering of it. Steve's our architect here. You were asking questions about the height of it. You see the height, it's about 8 feet high. And we sort of look at this sort of like as a truss. Many of the houses here in Cape May, between the main house and the garage, you have like a little trestled roof or something. It just gives it a little aesthetic decoration. The only thing different between this aesthetic is it just has water dripping from it. It's not a water play feature as much as it is just a piece of aesthetic. It's not where kids jump up and down and play in it or anything. We're just trying to create some softness to that pool area. We feel that, all the things that we've done historically and will do in the future are all just appearance issues, and everything in the application pertains to the appearance of the building. So those were the 4 things that you had questioned. We revised the application and submitted we missed 1 hearing. We resubmitted for December. You didn't have a quorum, so we're back here today.
So the shower curtain is still in it, and I think I heard you say it's 8 feet tall
Yes.
off the ground.
Yes.
Okay. Discussion by members?
You've satisfied, in my view, everything we requested in terms of the revisions you've made.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Buckner.
Corbin?
The standing seam roof,
Yep.
we require a 1-inch seam, you got 1.5 inches.
So do I have it in here as 1.5 inches?
No, it's an inch.
Well, when we removed solar from the application, we're not touching the entire upper roof. So that's going to remain as is, as a shingle. The only standing seam is going to be on the mansard, on the front 2-story portion, and we can comply with
The one inch.
with the 1 inch on that.
And that's,
I looked at the rain curtain and what it was, and it looks like it's, like you said, it's an aesthetic,
Yeah, it's soothing.
like a fountain.
Yeah.
Or cooling mechanism. So as long as it's not, as long as we like the aesthetics of it, I think.
I'm sorry, Janice, can you put your mic on, please? Thank you.
I was curious about the rain curtain because I'd never heard that term, so I looked into it, and it seems like a nice addition. I don't have any problem with it.
I like the new option you put in there for the railing treatment. I think it fits in better with the fabric of the community.
Jim?
I think this is responsive to our comments, and I wouldn't want to let my judgment about aesthetics be different than yours, because you're the applicant and you're entitled to the choice. I think you've complied with what we asked you to do.
Thank you very much.
With the standing seam tin roofs, which are something that, can really replicate historic roofs in town, the inch is important. But it's also, as they come down, usually 6 inches or a foot before the roof ends, there's a fold down in that brings it to an end. And you'll see that in many of the historic buildings in town. You won't see it in things like the roof that's on the present library in town that has that kind of very open, obvious end to it and takes away from any real feeling of recreation of the design of a standing seam tin roof. Would that be a possible thing to add to it?
100%. I'm not sure what that rollover looks like, but we will,
Kind of looks like
conform.
it had a 45-degree bend over to end that joint.
Yeah, I kind of like that. It sounds nicer, it sounds smoother, it sounds more Cape May.
You'll see that in numerous buildings, like the Chalfont, where when their standing seam roof comes to an end, there's then goes into a slate section of flat metal roof, and the standing seam ends about 6 inches short of that with an end point that looks handsome.
I like that
Do
idea.
you agree with that, Corbin?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Any other suggestions, changes? Would somebody like to make a motion?
I move that we will accept approve the application as submitted with the modifications to the standing seam roof, that there'll be no more than a 1-inch seam that will be bent over at the last end of so.
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved in second. We don't control colors, but what color will the roof be?
Still up in the air, so there are multiple opinions on that right now. You want my color choice, or do you? I've heard everything from white to black and everything in between, so we don't have a color chosen yet. But we do have an interior decorator, and we are working on a color that works with the building and works with the neighborhood.
We try to steer people away from real shiny roof colors, like real bold colors, more like subdued and a little bit more of a slate look to them, like a roof that's had some wear.
Yeah, even the blacks come in all those different shades. It's like a matted shade or a shiny black. So we'll also put that condition in there that we will have, a more matted shade, whatever color we choose.
Things like slate gray.
Yeah.
Would.
I'm not sure it's
go
going to
with
be
anything.
gray, but we'll matte the color, so it won't be that shiny.
Okay.
Yes.
We don't control colors, but we try to encourage.
No, well understood.
Okay. Judy, could we have a roll call?
Motion by Mr. Cogswell, seconded by Ms. Wilson Stridick. Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell?
Yes,
Ms. Wilson Stridick?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carroll, can I just ask Mr. Becker one quick question?
Sure.
Mr. Becker, you let us know last time that we were here is that there was a city ordinance that said absolutely positively, without fail, no solar on the front of the building. You can't see. You can have it on the rooftop if it's flat, but you seem to be the council's resident expert on solar. If the solar was, is there any condition that you'll allow it on the front at all? We've been told about new panels or new tiles that you can't even tell that it's solar.
So from my personal perspective, that would be acceptable to me, but currently in our standard, it says that solar panels cannot be visible. So the question is, what qualifies as a panel? And I think that this is still something that we would have to discuss.
Okay.
Yeah. 'Cause the-
Nobody has presented us in an application with something that would qualify as that description.
Latest technology is being developed that it's really difficult to tell whether it's a solar panel or it's a shingle.
Actually, this goes back to the Secretary of the Interior's design. When solar panels came out, they said, in the historic district, it cannot be visible from any public right-of-way.
So what we're going to try to do, we're going to come back with what we think is an invisible panel, and we're trying to find a place somewhere in Cape May or nearby, and we'll let you know where that is. And maybe you can take a look at it before we come for the first time. So we're coming back as a learning experience, trying to understand.
So if you'd like to send me an email, I can also find a couple of locations. Since I've been so involved in the green building world, I should be able to find some for you. But it's very, very new technology, so it's a little dicey at
That
present.
was our understanding
Yeah.
too, so we're just trying to,
Sure.
understand it as
I'll be
well.
happy to help you.
Thank you very, very
Sure.
much. Thank you, have a great.
I would think so too, for the future. The commission will have to decide that question, but that would only be applicable to a non-contributing building. You wouldn't put even a panel like that on a contributing building.
Right.
That wouldn't be acceptable.
Thank you very much.
Unless the United States government redoes their standards for building restoration. And there's a lot of pressure to have that happen.
There is.
I mean, it's not like we preservationists
We're not-
are against
Solar, yeah, you're not-
protecting
yeah.
the environment. It's just that, we are, our first mission is to protect the architectural history of Cape May, and our only real guide that we can follow to continue as a National Historic Landmark is the Department of Interior standards. So that's exactly what we're doing. But I would, like John, I would love to see what you're finding.
Okay, we'll be back. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Sure, thanks.
Thank
very
you.
much. Have a great.
We have now finished old business. We're moving into new business. Next application will be Smith, 625 Columbia Avenue, Block 1009, lots 4101. This is a non-conforming new construction house looking for solar panels.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
It's 925.
No,
According to the application.
Sorry, 925 Columbia
Yeah,
Avenue.
it's also non-contributing.
Didn't I say
Said
non-conforming?
non-conforming.
You did.
Non-conforming.
I wouldn't want to get everybody
That's 'cause
confused.
I'm non-conforming, so but it's
We
non-contributing.
understand it's a non-contributing structure.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Josh Fisher. I'm an in-house counsel for Trinity Solar.
little louder, please.
Josh Fisher, in-house counsel for Trinity Solar. With me tonight, Mr. Larry,
Spell your last name too?
Fischer. I'll let my colleagues introduce themselves.
I'm Larry Murphy, M-U-R-P-H-Y, licensed professional engineer.
Okay.
Kevin Kura, K-U-R-A, electrician for Trinity Solar.
Josh, are you the owner of the property, or?
No, Mr. Smith is sitting right over there.
Okay, yes. Good to see you again.
All right. So we're here tonight to present an application for the installation of solar panels at 925 Columbia Avenue. I hope that the board has received all the materials that we've submitted. The proposal is to install solar panels on the rear of the home, and I hope that based on the materials that we've submitted, that you can see that the panels are not visible from any public right-of-way, including Columbia Avenue. But I'm going to turn it over to Larry to describe the project a little bit more. So Larry, could you just go into a little bit more detail about what we plan to install?
Sure. So the house faces Columbia Avenue, or generally the southern direction. The rear of the building has a roof facade that's fairly shallow and faces away from Columbia Avenue into the interior lot. 12 panels will be, or proposed to be placed on that rear roof facing the rear of the property. From Columbia Avenue, you can't see the panels from either the east, coming east approaching it, or coming west and looking at it. The panels themselves are 12 panels. They'll be 6 inches off the roof. They're about 3 inches thick. They'll be 3 inches above the roof plane, and they're also set back 3 feet from either side. And when you look at the edge of the roof, you're not able to see the panels because they're outside that view line. So it's not visible from Columbia Avenue. It's very simple from that perspective.
And would you say that the installation is compatible with the historic character of the historic district of Cape May? Does it change any of the roof planes? Does it change any aspect of
It
the house
doesn't-
as it currently exists?
It doesn't change any of the materials or the roof plane, and it's not visible from the public right-of-way, and my opinion is it doesn't change the character because it's not visible.
So if any trolleys or tour groups went by the house, they wouldn't be able to see it?
You will not be able to see it from Columbia Avenue, either sidewalk or the cartway.
So that's pretty much our application, ladies and gentlemen. So we'll turn it over to questions if you have any.
Okay, questions by board members?
So just one question for you. On your solar panel roof plan, the one that's sealed and signed,
Yes.
I was confused because it says Madison Avenue is directly adjacent to the property, but it's not. It's about 3 or 4 lots away, and that's why I had to go look at it to make sure I was in the right place. So it appears to me that the panels will not be visible from the street.
Okay.
Well, they, they won't be visible from Columbia, but what about from Corgi behind it?
I also looked from Corgi and from Page, and I wasn't able to, Page Street, which is a paper street, and then also a dead end with a do not enter sign. From the do not enter sign, you can't see it. And there was recently 2 houses that were built at the end of Page Street that block that visibility from Page Street. From Corgi Street, you're looking at other roof lines and other trees that are blocking.
So your testimony is that other obstructions, obstacles, and the line of the units itself doesn't really let you see it from, any person on the ground walking along Corgi and going down Page wouldn't really see these panels.
Correct. You would have to be in a helicopter or,
A drone.
a drone,
A drone.
something. Or you'd have to
Trespassing
be,
in the back.
yeah, you'd have to be in the, let's say, the house on Page, on your second-story window, looking back, and you can see it from inside a residence, but not from
Well,
public right-of-way.
furthermore, the roof slope is fairly shallow, which is the other thing I was thinking as well. These are on a north-facing slope,
And it's
but
20
since it's so shallow,
It's 25 degrees, so you really can't see
can't
it.
see them.
It's very hard to see it, and if you're looking from a far distance, it's gonna look like, it's gonna blend in, because you're just gonna see an edge from far away.
Yep.
And if over 40, it's not gonna be that clear.
Did anybody go down and try to take a look at it from all the streets around it, Corgi or?
I did not.
I was over there today, and I walked, looked at it from both sides of Columbia Avenue, walked down behind it, and I did not go to Corgi Street or Page Street, but didn't think, looking back, you can't see Corgi Street from the backyard there, so.
Yeah.
So-
There's trees, there's buildings.
So,
No.
I have no problem with it.
This is a non-contributing structure. The streetscape from Columbia is preserved because it's just not visible, and it sounds like it's really not visible either from the backside, even though it's on the north side of the street. So I don't know what else you could have done except use some of the new mystery panels that may come out. This is about as good an installation of solar panels as you could have if we're permitting solar panels, and we are
Yes.
on this type of structure.
I have to admit, there's some houses that are out of the district that have had very obvious solar panels go up, and I have sure heard from neighbors and people in the district say, how did they get permission to do that? So we're being very, very careful where these are going up. And there's actually a fair number around town, but they're using them discreetly and in areas like this. And this is one reason we do have you come before the board, so we can, our members can go out and take a look at it too. Is there any further discussion on the application?
I will make a motion that we approve the application as presented.
Second?
It's been moved and second. Further discussion? If not, Judy, roll call, please.
Motion by Mr. Cogswell, seconded by Mr. Becker. Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick.
Yes.
Mr. Testa.
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson. Mr. Becker.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good to see you again. I like your stained glass windows that you put in those windows. They look real good.
They come out nice. Thank you.
Yeah. Good business. You're not kidding.
But then we're thinking we weren't getting lot lines or just side yards and things like that. But that building was exactly the same.
Yeah, can you, you want to?
Are we playing musical chairs over there?
Do you folks need more microphones? Can you share?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So Paul was right. Thanks.
Excuse me, gentlemen. Our next application is from Madison, Cape May, RE LLC at 1025, 1029 Beach Avenue, Block 95, lots 8 through 13. This is actually for a non-contributing section of the project and a contributing building that's also in this application. And it's for sun deck roof, addition, guest house renovation, and landscaping. And you are looking for a conceptual approval. I think one thing we might be looking at here, let me get my phone back on. I think one thing we might be looking at here, and I'm going to check with both of our lawyers on this, since we're looking at two structures, one that's non-conforming and one that is conforming, that
Non-contributing.
non-contributing,
I think you're going to have to write that down and just put it in front of them for tonight.
I'm trying to get fired.
Stuck for another year, Tom.
I think we might try to have you present this in two sections, so the non-contributing, where our standards are a little bit different and adopted over time as compared to what we would be looking at on the contributing structure that are also part of the application. And I'm going to ask our attorney, does that mean maybe we would do this in two resolutions?
Well-
Not to confuse what's we're allowing on one
Actually,
and not on the other?
Well, you might have two motions.
Two motions.
This is conceptual tonight.
Yeah,
But I would urge the applicant to really make it clear where the difference between the buildings are.
So we'll present the entire application, both parts of it, and there'll be two votes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think having two different votes on it would be.
That's
would be
fine.
satisfactory. Okay, if you all would please introduce yourselves as soon as Judy's ready here.
Does it seem to be streaming for some reason?
Start, Dan? Sure.
Dan Alicia, I am the president and CEO for Madison Resorts and owner of Madison Cape May RE LLC.
Oh.
Sure, absolutely. Dan Alicia, ALICEA, and I am the president CEO of Madison Resorts and the owner of Madison Cape May RE LLC.
Good evening. I'm Dave Schultz. I'm an architect registered in New Jersey. I'm a partner in DAS Architects, and I'm a resident of West Cape May. And I've been to this board before.
Mr. Chairman, Anthony Monzo, attorney for the applicant.
Thank you. This is a new application before us, so take your time and give us a great presentation if you would.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Carroll.
Let me just give a little background on this. This is, as you can see, the Montreal Hotel, which is being renovated based on the plans that were submitted. And so we're asking for approval for the renovations, which include an expansion of the restaurant with a deck on top. And it's an expansion of the area that's currently being used on a temporary basis. And also, there's a roof on the west side of the building that juts out towards Beach Avenue that the applicant is proposing to put a roof covering that will match the roof of the main structure. It's a 4-story hotel. And with that background, also, there's a guest house in the back corner, which is at the corner of Stockton and Madison. That is a contributing building. And there is a renovation planned, no expansion, with the exception of some decking and some steps that are being added. But basically, it's a renovation with all new siding, windows, and basically to dress up the building. And Mr. Schultz will go through both. He'll start with the hotel renovation, explain, answer. I think maybe he'll address questions for the hotel part first, and then I'll go through the guest house. But first, I want to have Dan Alicia just give you his vision for this project and what it is he's looking to accomplish. So Dan, if you can just start with that.
Sure, thank you, and it's an honor and privilege. I watch this meeting every month on YouTube. So, but I will tell you that this is a special project. When we looked, we've been the owner now for a little over a year, and both my wife and I have been watching the Montreal and where it fits into the overall Cape May skyline. And I think when we went through design, we wanted to make sure that it fit in Cape May, every aspect. And we said that from aesthetically, whether you were standing on the promenade or you were staying in the hotel itself. The guest house behind the property is unique. It's special, and we want to make sure it's preserved that way. So when you're coming down Madison Avenue, you see it. You will find that we are proposing here is they look and feel like they belong. And so that is very, very important. Our company's core #1 value is to keep the community first in our heart. And so when you look at everything that we try to do, it's always to keep the community first. It's why our team focuses on constantly giving back to the community, and we took that as well as we did our design for this project.
Thank you, Dan. Maybe you want to
Sure, thank you.
go through, and the board's familiar with your background, if you want to give a little bit more on that. today.
Some of them are. I don't know if everybody is, but we've been coming to Cape May since the mid-'80s. My wife is my partner, and our firm's about 32 years old. We love Cape May. We live in West Cape May, as I said, and we truly appreciate what you do, because you can tell when communities don't have an overseeing body, things can really look pretty bad, and everybody's, so you provide a lot of, I think, helpful guidance to the community. So we really appreciate it, and I know it's a lot of time. So we're going to use the screen, if that's okay. Can I ask you guys to look at the screen, or no? Tom, you don't want to look at the screen, that's okay.
Can't read our lips, though.
Well, we can do both. How's that? Sorry, we understand you now have technology. We can use our screen. So there's the building. It's the Montreal Inn. It's a 4-story motel. It's about 69 guest rooms. I think our main goal for this building is to tame it down, to make it less bold. You're going to see in our proposal, we are looking to take that orange roof, modify it, reduce it, change it so it looks a little bit more timeless, and we're going to use a color that's much more muted in terms of like a mid-level bronze material. We're going to change windows on this building to give them a better architectural organization. We're going to add trim to the building where we can. It's basically a drive-it building, and we're going to, so we're doing the best we can with a fairly large building. We're going to add trim, we're going to add character. We're working with components that exist, but we think we can make it look a lot better, and we think we can make it look like it really fits better into the community. The railings will be replaced. If you look on the lower right, there's Harry's, which we actually helped the Hirsch's renovate several years ago into Harry's Cafe. So that will stay. The restaurant expansion is really just the area that's currently under canopy. So that'll become a fixed pavilion in this proposal. So to advance this, where's the arrows? Right here. Here we go. How's that? So these are additional pictures of the site. Now you're looking at the upper left is the corner, looking at the liquor store and the restaurant entrance and the four-story hotel in the background. I guess, kind of as a lead-in, the bottom right photo, you're getting a glimpse at 1024 Stockton, which will be called the Madison Guest House.
The Madison House.
I'm sorry, the Madison House. That's a building that was built in 1915 in the colonial revival style. It's a gem of a building, and we think it's important that continues to anchor that corner, but it needs a lot of work, which we'll talk about next. So there is the Madison House in its current condition. It's been updated over the years. Unfortunately, some of the trim work has been modified and not well. Our hope is well, first of all, we're going to take the cedar shakes off and replace them with cedar shakes. We're going to take that asphalt roof off and replace it with a cedar shake roof. We're going to take the decking off and replace it with wood decking. The railings are not original. They're really poorly made. So our plan is to build new railings that are more consistent with this era. Much of the windows are in disrepair. They don't work. There's quite a bit of rot. So we've been investigating those. Our game plan is to use a Woodwright window as a replacement window, and to replace trim where necessary with a composite trim, but to match exactly the profiles of what exists. There's in the bottom left, let's see if this works. There's this odd condition, and maybe you can tell me what you think of that, where there's a little balcony that cantilevers out from the house. It looks to us like that would have been an entry point originally. So our plan is to make that a stoop again and bring stairs down so it becomes an entry into the building. In the lower right, you're looking at the parking lot side of the building. There's a rickety fire escape wood structure there that we plan to rebuild in wood and then wrapped in composite trim, again, with authentic, details that match that period. So all in all, it will look refreshed, but we're not changing the look, we're not changing window spaces, trim. It really is our intent to make it look much better, but make it look like it was when it was built. So that is the contributing structure. And then for context, I know you like to see context to site. So these are just various photos of the properties around us. Upper left is from Beach Avenue. Looking to the left of our property, or looking to the west of our property with that Gambrel house. The upper right is looking directly across the street at the Capri Motel. Bottom left is across Stockton at a variety of homes that exist. And the bottom right is the house directly across the street from us at the corner of Stockton and Madison, which I think was, I don't know if it was built new or refurbished about 10 or 15 years ago. So that's kind of our context. This is a color-coded site plan. So the orange, and we're not using orange, remember we're taking the orange roof away, but the orange is the body of the hotel, the motel. There's, and all of the rooms face the ocean, which is typical of some of these motels built along Beach Ave. You see the pool. You see on the far right is the restaurant and liquor store that exists. And the brighter blue is the addition that's currently under canopy that will become a fixed structure in this plan. So you can see it's not very big. There's the parking area, and then at the top of the plan in purple is the footprint of the guest house. So that's kind of the lay of the land. And I don't know if you care a great deal about some of the plans, but this is the entry lobby to the property. Here again, you'll see the pool. And then this in yellow or amber is the dining space that's now going to be under a permanent structure. And by the way, the beach would be at the bottom of that page. So the second floor, the only thing that changes is really, well, there's a dotted line here that demarks where the existing roof deck is. So this is an expanded roof deck. Our plan is to take the bronze-colored standing seam roof that exists along the front of the property and wrap it around to finish off that roof. But inside of that will be a kind of a lounge, a roof deck lounge with a planter that wraps that space and provides some softening and some greenery. And then this is a new bar that's relocated, which will have a pergola roof. And then this is a little raised planted area where they can have music. So the third floor, frankly, there's really nothing from a plan point of view that changes. The fourth floor, which you'll see in the renderings, this is an outdoor deck that exists to the far left. And our plan is to build a porch roof over that. It'd be open air, but it'd be undercover. And we did that to make it more useful, but also to tie the roof lines together with our new proposed roof lines. Okay, so this is the guest house. The guest house is currently used to house staff and employees. And it is a multi-family property. So our plan is to turn it into a guest house for guests, a luxury-oriented guest house, kind of a boutique guest house with 4 guest suites in it. The ground level will be much like a house. There'll be a living room, there'll be a kitchen, there'll be a lounge space, and this is for the guests that are staying there to share. Or if it's a family, they can share that social space. This exists. This is the porch. I did forget to say that we're proposing new steps down to the porch rather than the steps that go currently to the side. This is where we're proposing porch steps. I'm sorry, steps down from that balcony down to grade on the Stockton Street side. We're expanding this terrace slightly with we're dropping down and expanding this little bit of terrace space here. And we're rebuilding that fire stair, that exterior stair here, in a way that we think is more pleasing. So as we go to the upper floors, this is the second floor. So there's a 1-bedroom guest suite and a 2-bedroom guest suite. And these are intended to be pretty nice. And then the third floor, we also have a 1-bedroom guest suite and a 2-bedroom guest suite. And then in gray, you'll see the stair. That's a second means of egress for us. So these are straight-on elevation studies. We'll start with the top one. That's from the beach looking back towards the property. So we've taken the orange roof off and we've rebuilt it, or we've modified it and created various hip roofs. So all these peaks you see are actually hip roofs, so they're sloping away from you. In the middle, there's a little eyebrow dormer that's actually proposed as a sign, but we're not here to submit for signage. But that's the idea, that could be a Madison Resort sign. On the lowest level, we have an arcade that we're building to soften that level and to break down the height of the building. On the far left, this top floor is new, and that's a deck now, but we're going to cover it with a porch roof. and frankly, tie it into the rest of the roofs. If you remember the photos, there was a couple of columns that were added to support the roof overhangs. And we thought they looked like they were spindly and spread too far apart. So we're adding some columns that are decorative, but we're trying to create a little more harmony with the facade. And we're also, if you remember this end of the building, it's really pretty bland. And we're replacing those windows so that there's a better order to the composition, adding these fabric awnings for a little color. And this, by the way, is the lobby. And then on the right side, this is the existing restaurant, which we did a couple years ago. So our plan is to extend that over a couple bays and match it so it looks like it's fairly seamless, all things considered. So that's the front elevation. The elevation that faces the parking lot, you can see we've changed the colors. It's no longer going to be brown. We're proposing a cream-colored building, and we're proposing to change the top floor to white, again, to make the top floors feel special, but also to break up the height of the building and bring it down. I forgot to mention there's an elevator tower that sticks up another floor that exists today. We propose to take that down to improve the roof line. We were cleaning up the service yard, things like that, new railings, new windows, in a much more subdued color scheme that consists of the cream, the white, bronze colorations, something we think and we hope will be more sophisticated. All of the materials actually are specified on these pages. So now let's talk about the guest house. Oops, whoops. It's being finicky. Oh, okay. So, again, the palette would be a red cedar shake roof, that of course will go fairly gray in short term. The siding would be white cedar stained in this cream color, which is represented here. To be honest, the renderings look, uh-oh, what just happened?
I guess your time is up.
Check the power. So I'll keep talking. I wanted to get to the.
We know you have it in you, Dave.
I want to get to the red. You want to leave. We're time's up. So hopefully Bill Hare, my architect, can get this resurrected. So the house on the corner, you know, it doesn't comply with current zoning because it's in the setbacks, but it really does stand out. It's really kind of an anchor to the site, which we think is great. So we're talking cedar shake roof, cedar shake siding. We're going to match the trim. We're going to either keep the trim where we can, or we're going to match it. We want to match it with composite. We want to replace the windows because we've looked at them and they're all really bad. The interior, the floors are settled. There's a lot of structural work to be done in this house. And frankly, it's been maintained but not well for many, many years. So we need to bring this back to a safe condition.
There are a lot of the houses in this area where there have been settlement.
They didn't really have foundations back in the day, and we've done a lot of renovations to houses on New York Ave. They all settled in the middle. So we need to repair that. But as part of that, we need to make this a nice property. So we're talking about wood-right windows. We're talking about matching the trim or keeping the trim if it's in great condition and salvageable. It will look like it looks today, only freshened with materials, with newer materials. The foundation is brick. The brick, of course, will stay. If there's any repair work, we'll match the brick. Our intent is to match everything. There's those round columns on the porch. We looked at those. Some of those are original and some aren't. So we may be able to keep those without having to replace those. But there's a lot of decay at the base. So we just need to really do a little more exploration on the construction side to make those determinations. And as you know, I know you know, in a renovation, those things are uncovered over time. You don't always know when you start what you're going to end up finding. So we know we need to be somewhat flexible in how we approach the repair. Oh, Tom, I got my pictures back. So let me go right to the renderings and I'll finish. So these are some, I'll call them conceptual renderings that maybe will give you a feel for what we're trying to accomplish. So that's from the beach, kind of a bird's eye view of the beach view. So on the far left, you can see that sort of porched area that we've created. And it also has a hip roof, a metal standing seam roof. All these roofs will be a combination of existing and new, because we're going to knit together with what's there. And these are all hip roofs. We have the new columns. The new railings will be, right now there's pipe railings that were very popular in the 80s, and they're white, and they really are too bold. So we're going to replace those with metal railings in a bronze color that will be a little thinner. You can see a little bit, you can see the restaurant, you can see the addition again to the restaurant. And then this, actually there's a better one coming up that will show you that roof deck. So that's a look from the corner of Beach Avenue and Madison. You can see the Madison house there in the far background. The colors will be matching, so even though they're very different buildings, we want them to be unified by this property. So there you get another look at the porch addition, the columns we've created, the roofs that will be really tamed from what they are today, and the colorations that will be more muted. Now that's looking right down at that roof area. So this is the new bar that'll have a pergola cover over it. The idea here is not to add seats, but to make it a better environment, a better experience. There's umbrellas, we have planters, this is rimmed with planters, some fixed seating, some floating seating. It's really meant to be a little casual environment, and it's really the rooftop of the restaurant expansion. So we'd rather see that than just a frankly, an empty roof. And then last is a view from the corner of Stockton and Madison, looking at the guest house, and then looking back up the street towards the beach, and you can see the Madison Resort in the background. That's our presentation. I can go back through it if you like, or go back to the beginning.
So, Mr. Chairman, since we had talked at the beginning of this that we would have two separate votes, would it make sense to have a discussion first about the non-contributing hotel piece vote, and then have a separate discussion about the contributing? Okay.
Does everybody agree we'll
Agreed, yeah,
look at the non-conforming?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
You are going to need approval from what other boards?
Planning board.
Planning?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Is parking an issue in this with additions?
We have the engineer going through a parking analysis. We do not believe any seats are being added, so we don't believe that there will be a parking variance as part of this, but we haven't gone through the analysis yet, and once we do that, we'll make that determination.
And I'm sure you understand that our initial approval, conceptual approval, can become null and void if the zoning board or the planning board sends us back with, restrictions that they're putting on what you're proposing or what you presented to us.
We understand that.
Well, we would change to whatever we had to, moving from conceptual to final.
Right.
Being allowed to do what we could do, but this is our best shot now, and it may be different when it comes to final approval.
So let's start with questions about the plans for the main non-contributing building.
I have one comment. I see you're putting a lot of standing seam roof in. Again, you probably heard us talk about a 1-inch seam with the last end bent over so that it looks finished.
Yeah, we have to look into that. I mean, frankly, the mansard roof exists, and we're hoping to keep that and paint it. If I don't know how it was built, frankly, we haven't been on the roof yet. But if we can do that, maybe we fold those ends over and modify it. Certainly, that's a view. Any of the view
If
roofs,
it's a new standing seam roof, that would be our requirement.
that would be fine.
Yeah.
And if you can modify, if the old one is not that, you probably can modify the tail end of the,
We could fold it over, I'm assuming.
I mean, that's,
Yeah, that's, sure. I mean, well,
but that was the only thing I noticed when I was going through and looking at everything. I mean, it's non-contributing, so you get to use more modern materials. I didn't see a detail on the railings. I
we
mean,
don't,
a blown-up detail.
we haven't prepared one yet, since this is a conceptual presentation, but we certainly would
That we-
prepare all
we
those
need that,
details.
We need lighting
Yeah,
and all that.
we would certainly prepare all of that come in the next.
But the indication that was given with respect to reducing the size and making them darker is definitely something in the right direction. I'd also say that this is to my way of looking at it, this is taking what looked like an oversized Howard Johnson's and moving it in the direction that, I mean, there are limitations to what you can do with the structure, but I think the lowering of the roof line, the changing of the color, the removal of the bright oranges, the softening, and even the western addition of the top to conform with the rest of the roof, all are changes in the right direction. So I mean, from the standpoint of how it looks, yeah, I think it's a great improvement.
Thank you.
And I like the porch you did there on the third floor, the covered porch. It's reminiscent of the gazebo down at the Cove.
Yeah.
Put some rockers in there, and very nice.
Janice?
I walk by it all the time, and I'm looking forward to looking at that.
Because no one's looking forward to looking at what it looks like now.
You know, I think this is the first for our meetings. This is the first time we've had not one, but two motels, and they're across the street from each other.
Yeah, yeah.
So, things are looking up, right? Yeah.
John?
I agree with the prior comments. Great improvement. Can't wait to go there.
Thank you.
I'm certainly in agreement with all the comments that you've heard. I think this will really tone it down and help it blend in with our wonderful historic town. And I'm sure when you do all the cut sheets for the elements and everything, they'll work very well with it. If there's no other comments,
I'd like to move we give them consensual approval, pending what is said by the boards, and when they come back, we have have a construction-type drawing where we have some dimensions and details of railings and lighting.
Absolutely.
I'll second that motion.
moved by Corbin, second by John. Further discussion on that motion?
So there will be two motions, one for each building.
Right, thanks, Judy. So Judy, if you do a roll call for the non-contributing building, that would be, we'll move on to the next one after you vote.
Okay, thank you. Motion by Mr. Coxwell, seconded by Mr. Becker. Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Coxwell?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson? Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Just a point of order, applicants, the address on this is incorrect on your application. The actual address in our tax files is 1025-1029 Beach Ave. The address 1024 Stockton Ave is not existent now. So when you come back, just correct the title of the application. Thank you.
Did you get that, Tony? The correction? Okay. Okay, now we're going to move into the contributing building. And as you all know, we are very interested in preserving as much of the historic materials, the historic character, the appearance, the age of construction, those things that really make sure that when people look at our buildings in our town, they are reflecting what was there, like in this one, in 1915. And we do certainly understand the wear and tear, particularly with buildings that haven't had good maintenance and what they need. I'd like to start with just saying, what is the current zoning on this building now? You say you're using it for a boarding house for help. Is it zoned as a multifamily?
It is.
Or
It is.
Or like a whole house rental type of?
It's a if I'm not mistaken, it's multifamily.
Okay.
This,
So you are going to be presenting it to the planning board as 4 units.
Correct.
That's where I think you might run into the parking element of how many more you would need to add to it, even though you might end up with something that has less parking. And you're considering renting it out as 4 separate units, although it could be rented to,
Our goal would be to rent it out as one.
yeah.
As a one.
big
whole-
family.
Big family. It's, this is, the thought of this house is to be a very upscale, I mean, the views are pretty amazing from this house, and, but we do agree that the location is pretty, I would say it's pretty iconic when you come down the street. It's like right in front of you. But it is, our intent is to rent it out as one whole unit.
So your kitchen, dining room, living room on the first floor certainly play out that intention that they'd all have their own bedrooms and bathrooms, but they would have this common area.
Our concept for Madison House is that it's reminiscent of the bed and breakfast that you would have seen, or you still see today, but for many, many years, that there were so many here. So that is really conceptually where we're going with that. For example, we would have a chef that's in there cooking for you. So it's really very upscale, but to the point where utilizing our staff that we currently have. But it is, we took that from the bed and breakfast model.
Or even a single-family house, because it's the way you have arranged the way you have the public rooms as they were originally set on the first floor, and then bedrooms going up, even though you've made them into separable suites. That's just typical of what was done in the era of construction. I would just note that since we said this was about 1915, if I remember, that would pretty much mark it as the western boundary of the East Cape May Development Company, which did virtually everything east of Madison Avenue all the way through Wilmington and based on Pittsburgh. And that was a turn of the century through its financial failure in 1915, 1916, in a big real estate bubble. But I'm guessing that this house was one of those things done at the western edge of that development, and typical of what you would see in the East End built around that time.
You called it colonial revival.
I wouldn't, but
We also call those American shingle style up in that end. And they're all incredibly well-built houses. I mean, even though materials are failing on the outside, they were built to last anything. And they certainly have through the storms that we've had in the past. So I'm sure we want to talk about exterior
Sure.
details.
So visually and conceptually, what you're doing with it, I think, is ostensibly great. But I do have 6 issues that
they're probably the same 6 that I've
are concerns, yeah. So number 1, the aluminum guardrail for a contributing structure that's depicted on the elevations would not be something we could approve.
That's not supposed to be on the application.
Well, the elevation sheet notes, well, there may be a bunch of things here.
Yeah.
The elevation sheet notes call for an aluminum guardrail,
That's incorrect.
okay? So all I'm suggesting is that for us to approve it, it would need to
Yeah.
be wood.
There was, yeah.
Second, a long list of composite materials, stair risers, other guardrails, cladding, trim, lattice, column, water table are all indicated on the elevations as composite. Those would also need to be wood.
Yeah, and they're also indicated on the material sheet, exactly like that.
Yeah, so on 2 documents, the materials sheet that you're given, that's the overview, and in your elevation notes, if those are incorrect, we would need to make sure that they're presented accurately.
That is correct. What we think we're going to have to replace a lot of that when we get into it, because
Okay.
there's evidence of rot.
So since it's a contributing structure, though, we would need to replace those materials with wood. Third was the same thing with the windows. You're proposing an Anderson aluminum window.
No, we're not. That's not incorrect.
It's
It's labeled wrong. I apologize. We found that out today.
Okay, great.
They're proposed as wood-right windows.
Okay, so it shows up in a couple of places, on your elevation notes and also in the overall materials document on page 2.
We discussed it and we found that mistake.
Okay,
Sorry.
great,
Woodwright is not wood, it's a composite.
correct.
Anderson doesn't have a true wood window. There are only 3 or 4 manufacturers that do have a true wood window that is primed.
Okay, I thought Woodwright was a wood window. That's
Just
No.
deceptive name, Dave.
So, in order to,
I thought, yeah.
in order to comply
And
with
the
our.
400 series used to be wood, but they've changed it.
So we would be open to discuss other manufacturers.
Yeah, so in order to comply with our requirements for modifying contributing structures, the windows need to be primed wood. So the manufacturer that often is used, you'll see on applications, Geldwin is one.
Geldwin, yeah, we're
right?
familiar with Geldwin.
Okay. Number 4 is an interesting one, and that is the existing photographs that you showed indicate on the north elevation a chimney that's associated with the large fireplace that's in the new lobby. And in the drawn elevations, it disappears, so I'm curious about that.
Don't know about that. Let me go back, look at the elevations.
North elevation.
I think you just had it, Dave.
Well, there's.
No, that's the east elevation.
I want to go to I was going to go to the
East is Madison.
So,
North is
Well, it depends
south.
on, since it's at an angle,
Okay.
what you guys are calling the north elevation.
that, there's a,
Or no, I'm sorry, I'm mistaken. It would be the south elevation.
okay, so it's not this chimney.
No, that's on the north. It's the one on the south that is the larger fireplace that it looks like you're, on the plan, it looks like you're adding a fireplace, but in the existing photographs, it appears as if there was a chimney on that south elevation that disappeared in the elevations drawn. Yeah, so if you go all the way up to the top where you first showed the photographs, you can see that there's a chimney. Yeah, you might have just deleted it accidentally. So my question is, it looks like the plan is showing a new fireplace there, at least,
That-
okay, great. So yes, you see this one? It's this one right here.
Oh, that one? Oh, that aren't,
Yeah, that's centered.
And in the historical report for the house, it talks about that those are contributing components of
yeah.
the
Our
character, so we
intent.
want to keep it.
Our intent was to keep it, that's just a
Great.
drawing error.
Number 5 is really the same thing with, that Corbin was talking about with the other project, but it's even more important on a contributing structure, is seeing the configuration and details of the railing systems, because you're adding quite a few.
Yeah.
Making sure that they are consistent with materials and character of the historical structure. And then the last thing is, it would be really, really helpful to us, as evidenced by the chimney issue, is if we could have drawings of the existing elevations that we could then compare to the new elevations, because
Sure.
it appears as if you're not adding any windows, but I couldn't tell. It looks like you're just replacing a few.
We're not adding any windows.
Okay, but that would be really helpful. That way we can look at what's existing and what's new, and we can assess what's being
Sure. That's-
altered.
That's easy.
That's it for me. Thank you.
Corbin, anything more?
I think you got all the trim and windows and everything, John.
Janice? Okay. Jake?
Nothing more.
Okay.
Question,
He beat you at everything.
Well, because he goes first.
just a
And he knows more.
we got all the comments, I wrote them all down, and we're talking about trim around the windows, the fascia, any trim on the building, you want wood replaced with wood. What about railings for the fire access and other railings that
The fire
are?
escape?
Well, if you have a wooden fire escape, you're going to have a wooden railing.
Well, we proposed a wood structure, but we were going to clad the material with composite. So it'd be a white composite cladding.
So the structure's metal clad?
No, it's wood.
Wood clad?
It would be
AZAC material?
the wood itself would be
On a fire
construction
escape.
grade wood, pressure treated
Yeah, okay,
construction.
on a fire escape.
And then we would clad it. Do you care either way?
Well,
The answer is
I will
yes.
pose a question around the table. Since the fire escape would never really have been an original feature to that house, and to give long-term durability to it, Would that be one of the elements we might let be done with AZAC, which can look exactly like wood?
I would be able to support that because it wouldn't have been part of the original structure.
I remember a few months back at the Grana building at Perry and
Yeah.
Park, remember they had an outside fire escape?
Yeah.
And I believe they may have done it in metal. I'm trying to remember, if anyone else would.
There was also an issue there with the proximity to the house right next to it.
Yeah.
That we were trying to give more fireproofing to it.
Yeah.
And AZAC also gives a fireproofing.
Is there a reason why you didn't want to do the escape in metal?
We didn't like the aesthetic. We didn't want to see a metal structure off the back of this historic building. We'd rather it look like a functioning stair with appropriate trim on it.
I mean, I can understand why you'd want to cover over the treated lumber, but and I also understand the argument that it certainly wouldn't have been a fire escape dangling off in
It's
1950.
really not a fire escape, fire escapes tend to be quite narrow.
Yeah, but if it's more like a stairway,
It's
then the AZEC part troubles me. That's my problem, and it's a contributing structure.
I don't think it's a big issue for me. I don't know about the owner. If everything is gonna be wood, we can make that out of wood. It's gonna have wood treads already.
Okay.
So I don't think it's worth,
I take it there's no chance of a second means of egress within the building?
there's not.
Okay. Okay. There's no old-fashioned made stairs back up to the third?
It's a fairly small house.
Yeah,
And there's
okay.
nothing that would comply with code.
And there's a new stairway being built out to Stockton.
So I think you're hearing about the elements that we really are going to have materials
Yeah.
that were available and used at the time
I
of
understand.
construction. But a feeling that leeway towards using AZAC on a fire escape or outside staircase like that would be approved when we come to the final.
I don't know, Tom, if we've had one since I've been on the board, but I do know that when the permission was given to put the upper room on the parish hall at the church, which at that point was considered to be contributing, they required wooden rails on the wooden fire escape. This is years ago.
I don't know that we're not even disputing that. I mean, if you'd like it to be wood, I think we just make it all wood.
I mean,
That in
that'd
some
be-
ways is easier because it's one component, not two components.
Yeah, rather than you pasting a lot of AZEC all over everything,
Yeah.
I would prefer that it would be made of wood.
I think
That'll
that's
keep us
fine.
out of trouble on future applications, too.
Great.
I really don't want to open that crack because it's just hanging off there as a fire escape.
We understand. It's perfectly fine.
So to help with your list, if you just look at the elevation sheet notes, any place where you see the word composite is where we would have questions. And I'll just list them again. It's stair risers, guardrails, cladding, trim, lattice, columns and column covers, and the water table.
Okay.
Okay?
And I would move to give it conceptual approval with those conditions.
Okay.
That when it returned to us with whatever else it might have, that those conditions be noted as part of the approach for final.
Okay. Judy, did you get that motion? Find it from Jim? That he's-
Well, Judy, it's a conceptual approval, but subject to the changing from composite to wood on the items that are circled on the materials list and that John just went through.
Several. Well, actually, it's on the material.
Look at the materials sheet. It would be,
It's on the material sheet and also on the elevation notes.
it would be removal of the composite and substitution of wood, of real wood, of all wood, instead of the composites.
And in addition to that, not the aluminum railings that are shown on the second floor balcony and primed wood windows.
Correct.
Oh, and also, John, the chimney, right?
Oh, and the chimney, yes.
Are you catching up, Judy?
I hope so.
I see that Mr. Feinberg is taking notes.
Yeah, but we don't do a resolution on the conceptual.
No, this is just conceptual, but it's with those items.
I'll have a recording.
Yeah.
I generally listen to the whole thing, so.
Okay, Jim's made the motion. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by John. Further discussion of the motion? Roll call, please, Judy.
Mr. Carroll? Mr. Cogswell?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson? Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much.
Good luck
Pleasure.
with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dave, as you heard earlier, we don't control colors when we start talking about toning it down, muting. You're ringing bells in my mind.
You think I like that?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I used to like that junk.
They have the best. They really do.
I mean, people really get a good idea of what we're looking for. Yeah. Other than whole belly. Should.
Our next and last application, I think, is Terry Swain, 1211 Lafayette Street, Block 1061, Lot 84.01, contributing for an addition, a deck, foundation, veneer, and front steps.
This is Tony Monzo night, isn't it?
Yeah.
Busy guy.
This is a triple for him tonight. It's a triple. Let's,
Does Lou Dwyer know you've stole his whole act here?
It's a very different act than Lou had.
Yeah.
yeah, it's a 10% break in the rates, per hour rates.
I used to like Lou, because he had a vein that would start.
Introductions, please, even though we know you all pretty well.
I'm Terry Swain.
It's Anthony Monzo representing Ms. Swain in this application.
And Jim McAfee, I'm the architect.
I would like to pass out some photos.
Thank you.
Just 3 photos that mark A 1, 2, and 3.
I guess everybody has them now. It looks the same as it did yesterday.
This, Mr. Chairman, this application is for an addition to the rear of property that Terry Swain owns at 1211 Lafayette Street. It is a contributing building. It's a bungalow-style, craftsman bungalow-style property, and Terry and her husband Glenn McBreedy is here. They want to occupy this home, continue to occupy this home as their permanent residence, and, you know, as they grow older, as we all are, they want to make some modifications and a slight addition that will make things better, suitable for them in later years. So Terry is here to provide some background on that, and Jim McAfee is here as the project architect to talk about the design, the materials being proposed, and to talk about how this fits into the historic preservation standards, and he's reviewed them and is willing to, he's prepared to discuss that and answer any questions that the commission may have. So with that background, I would just like Terry first to just give a little bit of overview.
Good evening. Thank you for hearing us tonight. Basically, for us, we are familiar with the neighborhood. I bought the house about 25 years ago and lived there for quite some time until recently, right around COVID. Before COVID, we decided to do some repair work necessary on the house. And so we got permits and we went through the whole process of renovating and replacing windows with the wood window replacements. And went through a process of just renovating the inside and getting it firmed up, replacing the much-needed lack of insulation and wiring and getting everything up to code, and went through all the permitting process. And then COVID came, and so we put a hold on everything and relocated next to the store so we could be available when we had to be at the store in our great-grandparents' house there. And so it's been on hold for quite some time, but during that time, the neighborhood also changed hands with a lot of people moving on, passing away in life. A lot of our neighbors are no longer the neighbors that we had when we left there. And we learned a lot in the process of how we needed to prepare better with our own personal lives, with our parents that aged, how we needed to, when we decided to go back, prepare ourselves for that process for ourselves as well. So I guess it's commonly referred to, residing in your retirement as now aging in place. And so that's kind of where we find ourselves facing and trying to prepare for. So typically, we also have the fortunate blessing to also have the Daw Hospital as a rental property, which is on the other side of where we reside at 1211 Lafayette Street. The address there is 1207. They are sister houses. It's also another bungalow. And our understanding is that what was very typical when people purchased the bungalows back in the day, that it was priced accordingly so that you could expand your second floor, or what's considered a half floor, to accommodate additional living space for 2 bedrooms. And the way that a lot of the bungalows have acquired that additional space is through doing dormers. And we tried to pursue that process, and unfortunately, structurally, came across some difficulties with our engineers that said that we needed to really reinforce our basement. The purchasers of this house originally, when you could buy your kits, you could do different options. So you could do 5 rooms and a bath and a porch and a basement, if you wanted to fully go everywhere. I believe this follows the Bennett kit design that is more of the Delaware style back in like 1934. And we've found evidence where things that were in the wall when we were doing our renovation work that dates it to around that time period where the construction people left things in the wall that were dated at that time in nature. So the Delaware kit was available at that time. And when you look at the kit itself, you can see the interior layout follows that, and the same as the Daw Hospital. So it's just the flip in the interior layout. And it also provided for the option if you wanted a 7-foot clearance basement. So that's what we have in that house, is we also have a basement and access to the basement from the exterior. So in our future renovation plans, we were looking to accommodate our future needs and our current needs when we go back in, to accommodate our entryway, which is not the front of the house because of the proximity to the road. It's easier and better for us to have the front be our back, which is actually nice because it looks out in the distance. We have another property that's been subdivided, so we own that property, so we have a clear view going back onto the creek. And so what we like to do is to continue to maximize our view just in a different way, where we have a deck right now that we've had approved 20 some odd years ago by Tom when we came in front of you then, and we would just like to enclose that into an all-seasons room and provide for our additional space behind the house.
The photos, by the way, that I handed out, first 2 are from Google Earth. The last one is a photo I took today of the front of the property. So you can see the condition it's in. And by the way, the existing siding is aluminum. And as you can see in the material list, not only is the addition going to be cedar clapboard, but all the aluminum siding that's currently existing will be replaced as well to match it with cedar clapboard. So with that brief introduction, I'm going to just have Mr. McAfee provide some, we'll go through the plan and the material list. And I don't know if the commission is familiar with Mr. McAfee, so I'll ask that he at least, put his credentials on the record.
Sure. I'm obviously Jim McAfee, McAfee Architects. I'm a New Jersey licensed architect. I was here probably once or twice, but it's been several years. So. Going to the materials, one of the things I did want to clarify, that the drawings say existing clapboard cedar siding. That's obviously incorrect. It's aluminum siding. I think I originally thought that there was clapboard siding underneath of that. There isn't, so there will be new cedar siding on the entire building, the addition as well as the existing. So that aluminum will obviously be removed. I guess most of this is probably pretty self-explanatory. The shingles were replaced not too long ago on the existing home, so we're going to match those shingles with the addition. Cedar window and door trim to match existing. The side windows, the new windows were put in, but I think probably with the intention that the aluminum siding would get placed as well as the old trim. So the only kind of existing trim seems to be the windows and the gable. So we're going to try and match those, the gable windows in the front and the back. And then cedar, simple cedar railing. I could provide a more detail for that if you'd like. A brick veneer we'd like to add around the skirt, the foundation wall on the proposed addition as well as the existing. The existing house has exposed rafter tails and a half-round gutter. We want to continue that detail on the addition as well. Just to give you a general overview, the existing house is about 1,200 square feet. The addition would be a first-floor addition of about 340 square feet. That would include a covered porch or covered deck, and then a small living space, and then the second floor would have a small open deck and bedrooms, 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. The windows would match the windows that Terry recently replaced. I think they were Geldwin wood windows. The new windows would match those as well. I think that's pretty much.
So if you reviewed the historic preservation standards?
Yes.
And specifically for additions and for a bungalow style?
Yes.
So can you just elaborate on that and how your design kind of fits in and is appropriate for this particular property?
Sure. So as Terry kind of mentioned, the original idea, or at least one of the ideas, was to go to dormer and try and fit an addition on the second floor. The height up there is severely limited as it is, so we kind of felt that she wouldn't be able to get all of the things that she was looking for in that space, plus the existing roof would probably need to be removed and rebuilt in order to fit actual living space. So the addition itself, we've decided, we put that in the back of the house. It obviously, it appears as if it is not original to the house. We're also limited a little bit by an accessory building. There's an existing garage there that they would like to keep as well. So, based on zoning, we can only get so close to that garage, so that's where the second floor came into play on the back. But really, the materials, we're trying to bring that existing house as best we can with back to where it was. And you can see glimpses of that. I mean, the gutter detail and the rafter detail, that's all intact, but obviously in bad shape. So, like I said, that's what we're really trying to do with the main house and then the addition as well.
I do note on Exhibit A1, you can see on the, I guess that would be the south side to the left, there are a lot of obstructions that you don't really see when you're looking at the elevations, but that rear addition, which kind of sticks out on that one side a little bit, is partly visible from the street based on the conditions of the property right now.
Anything else?
One other, is a slight oversight that, I guess it would be on the left elevation. There's an existing, there's an air conditioning unit that's there that does not show up on the drawing. So we would obviously provide some screening for that as well.
Okay.
Members of the board, questions? Jim?
Well, I notice here that we have a contributing structure. It's a little hard for me to understand why, with all the modifications that have been made to this, that it really still is with the aluminum siding and other things on it. So in terms of your materials, I think this goes exactly in the right direction. It's a great improvement to the view. And the materials are the kinds of things that we would be looking for to be put on a contributing structure. With respect to the addition, in my personal view is that, first of all, it's modest in size relative to the existing structure, and that it is distinct enough for me to see it as a separate add-on, which to me is doesn't detract from what might be the contributing status of the building. And I guess I'd say lastly, I'm also influenced by the fact that this is going on at the rear of the property, and that the distance from the street and the landscaping means that very little of this is actually going to be visible from Lafayette Street. So to me, it is a good job and worthy of our approval.
Thanks, Jim.
And not that I feel like it would be disqualifying, but it seems like it's kind of, in the front of the house, you have all the existing windows, and then on your rear addition, you're putting the 6/1 with the nice grill patterns. And in the front, there's no visible grill patterns. The back looks more historic than the front, is my point, window-wise. But I do commend you.
The aluminum siding.
Yeah, but I do commend you, getting rid of the aluminum siding.
Janice?
It looks good to me. I don't have any issues with it. I understand the need.
Corbin?
Are the existing windows 1/1? In other words, no grill pattern?
There are no grill, just on the second floor, there is a grill pattern.
On the right side, you would see the windows that were replaced,
Right,
and there's no grill pattern, correct? in
no
those?
grill pattern, no.
And just looking at the drawing, the perspective, it shows, it looks like the addition is taller than the original.
It is,
It is.
by, I think, just shy of 3 feet. Good job. That was one of the original challenges with the program and what we were trying to do. The foundation issues, it really wouldn't support a second floor. There was some work that they needed to do just with the existing structure, which they've taken care of. But in order to make that work in terms of the second floor, that's where the additional, 2 feet 9 inches comes from.
The majority of the original windows are 1/1, then the new windows should be 1/1 to match.
Okay.
Yes, I'm fine.
But
John?
Yeah, just a few comments. In the historical report, interestingly, it talks about the reason why it's contributing are the character-defining attributes. One of them that's called out in that report are the diamond sash windows. And I could only find one, and in the photograph you gave us tonight, it's on the second floor in the front. It looks like it's hidden by the tree,
Right.
and you can just barely see it
Yeah.
on this, the historical report.
Yep.
So is it still there?
Yep,
And is it original?
yep.
Great. So if you're going to be replacing the windows, are you replacing that window or not?
There was no plan to.
Great, okay. So it's a historical defining character, and I think we would want to keep that. So what's really interesting to me about this project is if you look at our standards on page 71, it specifically says, "It is not appropriate to construct an addition that is taller than the original building." I would support this project doing what you're trying to do, even though our standards say that, for three reasons. Jim already brought up two of them. One is it's distinct enough in that it's very clearly an addition. Second, it is all the way back, it's 70 feet or more from the street, barely visible, particularly given the vegetation. And third, that the additional floor area is roughly only about an addition of 60%. So it's not as if you're dwarfing the area of the structure. So even though I just wanted to point out that if we approve this, it has caveats as to why we are approving it in exception to that provision on page 71 of our standards.
Anything else, Sean?
Nope.
Do you have any major landscaping plans here?
Yes. We were waiting for a lot of our neighbors to finish what they were doing as well before, so we could figure out what was going to survive that change. We have an appointment with our landscaper sometime this month or next month to come in and, when he frees up, to get to us. To figure out again, and Jay's been on the property several times, looking at things over the last 2 years of things that we could really try to keep growing, because we have a lot of trees. We have a lot of trees. I mean, all along the back on both sides, we have cedars that are, I don't know, 80 feet high.
Yeah. One thing about, I think, our willingness to say, yes, add on to the back, is these trees really are almost hiding it from there. I have to admit, when I was driving down to take a look at it, you really have to stop traffic to get a decent look
Yeah.
down there. The trees along your driveway, are they on the neighbor's property or yours?
So are you talking the
They're on the
driveway
other
side?
side of the fence.
Some of them are ours, and some of them, because that tree line pretty much so stops like around our garage level.
Okay.
To our neighbors that have their garage there as well, kind of around the same point. And then they pick up again right after the garages and go all the way back to the creek.
Okay.
So some of them, depending upon where the line falls, some of them are considered ours, and some of them are considered theirs.
You're probably really dealing with very aged trees and all, and it probably with doing all this too, you might want to, get some of them out and get new trees started.
Yeah, and we have to be careful because we're sensitive by the EPA standards with the bird migration. It's a heavily bird migrated area, so we're just trying to be respectful of all parties to make sure we're not, doing something we shouldn't.
Well, I always remember the battle we went through on the mall when we said, well, half these trees are as close to dead as possible, and if we're ever going to do the underground improvements we need to do, they have to go.
The original.
And I think we were almost lined up and shot, but I think you could do an awful lot, dressing up some lower things and plan, with the landscaping. That's only my comments. I think it's a very nice project, and I can well see why you're taking a great advantage of that view out over the meadows and giving that addition to the back. Is there anybody else? Is there a motion?
I'll move that we approve the project as presented.
I'll second that.
Do you want to do the window condition? The 1/1s?
Yes, assuming that we're retaining the diamond sash window, and just one other thing, I heard you mention it, but it doesn't show up on the elevations, the ridge tails, or I'm sorry, the eave tails in the addition, yeah.
Okay, so the original window in the front second floor is to remain, and all the other windows are going to be 1/1. They also mentioned they want to screen the air conditioning units on the left side of the building, so you could add that to it as something we're getting approved.
Great. I agree to all those friendly amendments to the motion.
And Bob, was there anything regarding the landscaping? I know that had been brought up.
No, there's not really a plan for the landscaping, but I'm just happy to get a little bit idea of what they're thinking, because it's so overgrown on it now that it's kind of hard to envision how some of these things are going to be if major changes. But if they're going to look after the birds, they're going to look after the view too. So that's good. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion?
Just that I applaud the simplicity of it was a challenge. I mean, this is such a modest structure, and it was hard to accomplish what you did.
Roll call vote, please.
Motion by Mr. Becker, seconded by Ms. Wilson-Stredick. Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Coxwell?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson-Stredick?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. I would now like to open this to the public, and we're still on live, aren't we?
And you have a member of the public.
Yes, yeah. Actually, you turned it off rather than on.
Noise while I was moving. Just a quick housekeeping item. Commissioner Becker just looked at the historic survey. I believe the last one was done in about 18 months ago.
I'm sorry, sir. Did you give your name? Did I miss?
I'm sorry. Martin Van Walsum, 329 Congress Street.
Thank you.
I don't believe the 2021 survey is yet available to the public. And I was wondering if we have any timeline for when that would be available so that the homeowners can see their neighbors' houses and their own houses. Thanks.
Wow. I don't have an answer on that.
I do.
Judy?
It's in the final stages. It has to be, all the surveys are prepared. They were approved by the state. That took a little while. And it needs to be approved by council via resolution, which I expect will be happening this month or next month. So soon.
Great, thank you. The last time I checked, that was the stage that it was at, and that was about 4 months ago. So it's good to hear that it's on the timeline to be approved by council. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't see anybody else in the public. I wouldn't be surprised if Warren Copeland has been watching this and doing a critique on our operation tonight.
I don't believe, Mr. Chairman, that that's the case.
What, you don't?
I don't. As he indicated, he probably would not be watching it, knowing that you would do such a tremendous job in his absence. But you never know.
We have probably a few other things we need to discuss. And Bob, do you have anything about another upcoming hearing to the zoning board?
Well, we have one. We have an appeal scheduled to be heard on January 26th. That's the Lane property. And the issue there involves the retaining wall in front of the building and the materials that were used for it. So we'll be attending that. Interesting application, because the way it was written is they didn't just appeal the decision of the commission, they are also asking for a variance in the event, I would suppose, that the commission was affirmed, then they want to obtain a variance from the requirement to use particular materials. This is the first time that I can recall that application has been made for one of our standards, from one of our standards. I don't know how the zoning board intends to hear that. We probably shouldn't get into that discussion too much because it is pending. However, if they do hear that aspect of this will probably be in a situation where there'll be live testimony as opposed to the normal appeal, where it's based on the transcript of what happened here. So there may be testimony presented as to why a variance should be granted for that particular project, which may involve a need to have some testimony from a member or two of this commission also, to explain why it's appropriate to use in other materials. I'll be speaking to you about that before we get to that hearing, but that's what's coming up.
Okay. Anything else? Does anybody else?
Yes, I have something I'm passing out.
Okay.
And some things that have come up in part of the review and part of, pass that down, I'll give you one. Give you one, John. You didn't get, let me get you the.
Did you bring enough for everybody?
Forever, yeah. I made 10 copies.
Were you passing this around too?
Yeah.
Okay. You can have it back.
Now you've touched it.
Take that one.
You've touched it.
He doesn't.
No, don't touch it.
He doesn't want to catch what I have.
The first one is actually a Bob question. We have a number of conceptual approvals that have been hanging around for up to how many years, Judy?
2 years.
And I think that there should be a timeframe for them to come back and.
But Corbin, there was. I mean, assuming that the instructions were adopted from the change of the application form, which doesn't seem to have been fully put into place. When you and I worked on that committee and you suggested this from conceptual to final, and I don't have those instructions in front of me, but I thought we imposed a must return requirement. I don't remember whether it was 12 or 18 or whatever the months was, but I seem to recall that's in there. We can clarify that, but it's a topic that you and I have discussed and that we drafted into the revised instructions that should be, they don't seem to have been put into full use yet, but that was there. I mean, that there was a time frame, and you all reviewed those drafts. I wish I could tell you I remembered if it was 12 or 18 months, but there was a finite time that we said, look, it has to come, if it's conceptual, it has to come back or it's going to be considered a new application.
And even our final approvals are good for 2 years. And if nothing starts underway within that period, you do have to come back. I mean, I can remember.
If you want to, sure. I mean,
times to renew the Washington Street application over and over every 2 years. So.
Yeah, I guess this is the equivalent of that, except this is happening in the context between conceptual and final.
There's a section in the zoning ordinance dealing with conceptual review, and in that section, there's no timeframes for anything set out. I think we have to understand that conceptual review is just an informal review of the project. It does say in the zoning ordinance that they're not bound to do what they present in that application, nor is the commission bound by whatever is said or conditions you want to suggest to them. I don't, if an applicant doesn't come back after presenting conceptual or even receiving conceptual, that would imply that they're not going ahead with the project for one reason or another. Maybe when they develop the full plan, it gets into expense or whatever the reason may be, they don't do it. I don't think we can or really should require them to come back with a full application in any given period of time.
Well,
I think if they don't do it,
I-
then it's considered abandoned.
Well, I think that's what we're saying, Bob, that we thought we had the power to fix a time that effectively would be abandonment, right? So if you put in the conceptual and you're not back within a reasonable time, and that time was extensive in what we talked about, I can't remember whether it was 12 or 18 months, it would be the effect of deeming it abandoned. To me, that's a perfectly reasonable thing for us to be able to do.
Yeah, I don't think I heard the first part. Are you suggesting that we do have a time?
Well, we had, I mean, in the revised detailed instructions that we had prepared in connection with changing the application, those instructions said, you can't hang around with conceptual approval forever. If you don't prosecute that application to its final stage, from conceptual approval to final within X time, and I can't remember whether it's 12 or 18 months, that it would be considered to be abandoned, and if you came back, you'd need a whole new application.
I don't remember seeing that.
I think it's there, but we obviously aren't going to spend the time here tonight looking at it, but I believe it is.
I don't think it really matters to us, other than administratively keeping it on file, but I don't think it really matters to us, because you're not giving approval or disapproval for a permit application. It's not there yet. So whatever.
We would collect a new fee.
You know, what.
We would collect a new fee.
Pardon me?
We would collect a new fee. If an application's abandoned, it comes back to us, you need to pay again. I think that was the view. Was it not?
Well, isn't there also a consideration about keeping current with regulations? I mean, things change, and if you just let it be an open-ended conceptual approval.
It's not open-ended, though. It ends when they make an application, or a formal permit application. The conceptual means nothing. If a zoning ordinance changes the day after conceptual approval is given, then they're going to have to comply with the zoning ordinance when they come back for a permit.
Well,
What I'm anticipating is people being upset because I think they come to here to get input and design their project to be compliant so it will be passed. So if there's changes in between when they got our conceptual approval and 2 years later or 3 years later, it seems likely there will be changes. I mean, we're dealing with so many things like the solar and the floods and everything else.
That's a
And
risk.
It seems impractical to have the conceptual approval not have a deadline of, a certain.
well, and Janice, that was the reason why that was proposed, because administratively it's hanging around forever. If someone comes back after that period of time, we thought it appropriate that additional administrative effort be paid for, and that's why it was in there. But frankly, we probably need to go back and look at the proposed changes or the detailed instructions as we all had them a few months back. And there was no, as I recollect, no formal submission to the commission to adopt them, but that's what was in the draft. And before this potato arrived tonight, I thought we had settled that issue. And maybe the next one's another
I
potato.
sometimes wonder, you get these conceptual approvals, been here for 2 years. Did they go ahead and do the work thinking they had approval? Yeah.
Well, I don't know, but you made this point, and we drafted it into the revised instructions. So I'm kind of curious as to why we're actually even taking this up.
No, nothing's been done on it.
Because you haven't seen the revised instructions, probably.
So we gave it conceptual approval, but we did not.
Well, next time I'll just introduce a motion that you all adopt the form and people can object to it, but.
So
I
Bob,
think-
would it be legal for us to create, let's say, an 18-month or 2-year deadline by which you need to resubmit after you've obtained conceptual approval? Is that, given what you read in the zoning ordinance, would that be within our purview? Would it be legal to do that?
It would just be part of our motion.
No, I mean, he's asking Bob to determine whether we have the ability to essentially call it an abandonment.
That would have to be part of, you'd have to make that a regulation. That would have to be part of the ordinance if you did that. You have to ground it on something. So it would have to be.
So it means it can't be an HPC policy, it would need to be incorporated into the zoning ordinance? Okay.
Well, so much of this is to help Judy get endless old
Right.
applications out of the office, because we have no place else to put them.
I'm sorry, I just
Not only
find
that,
myself
but when I,
completely.
paper files are becoming a problem for me
I think you
here.
can declare
But
something.
also, do I need to, when I save this with the resolution, I am attaching the conceptual plan, but the conceptual plan is just a concept. So do I need to keep the conceptual plan with the final approved plan, or can I discard that because this is the only plan that was approved as final?
You
That's
should definitely be able to destroy the consent.
the conceptual plan.
Because the final plan is the final word.
Okay.
Yeah, you would agree with that, Bob. That's right.
So that means it's a temporary file.
Yeah.
It is not a permanent file. So my question is valid. How long do I keep a temporary file that's not really an approval? It's just a recommendation.
So that sounds more like it's a policy issue. In other words, we could establish a policy for record keeping administratively that we will hold the conceptual drawings for 18 months, and after that, they're expunged.
2 years max. If you use a 2-year rule, you're also then in keeping with,
Okay.
when we give an approval and have a resolution and nothing starts,
Yeah.
they have to come back.
Great.
So why not use the 2 years for our conceptual ones that we went through, and what they submitted back then and our comments?
I'm not arguing against that as a reasonable abandonment declaration, but I hear Bob saying we don't have the ability to do that without a change in the ordinance. Have I misunderstood?
I see nothing wrong with telling people or putting it in the application that we're going to maintain the results for 2 years, just for internally, so we know what happened when they were here, what we were suggesting to them. But I don't think you want to put in there that you're requiring them to make an application within the 2 years. You don't want to do that.
There's no requirement.
No.
Okay, I really would like to respectfully defer this to another time, because this is really, we ought to be having a discussion about the proposed revised instructions, which seem to have, I mean, by virtue of this and the next question, don't seem to have been appreciated from the standpoint of being reviewed and commented on. These were all subject to your review.
I can't
And
discard a
I'm
plan
having
now.
a little bit of difficulty with these topics, which were both covered.
I can't discard a plan if they paid for it. If they paid for it, I can't discard it within 2 years because there's the proof that they paid the $300 application fee. And when they come back, they don't have to pay again because they got a conceptual review and like a draft approval. So that's the proof that they paid, so I
To
can't
me, this
discard
was
the
as clear
plan.
as it could have been.
All
Both
right,
of these
my
issues were
second
totally clear.
proposition is that all roofing application for new roof on a key or contributing structure automatically go to the full board, just like solar panels.
Well, that may be, but again,
The reason being is periodically, I will get a call from 1 or 2 roofers who go into a house, they see Cedar Shakes, the customer says, well, I got a permit, the new roof.
Yep.
But it was, they don't know how they got the approval, but they got the approval. And he says, well, you gotta go back because it's Cedar Shake. And they said, sorry. And then they get another contractor just goes ahead and does
yeah,
it.
well, again, and that may be, but we attempted to change the form of application so that there had to be reasonable inspection and certification before the application was submitted. That was in the new form, which doesn't seem to be in use yet.
But Jim, I don't think he's questioning that. When we review everything on Tuesday mornings, I think all Corbin is suggesting is that it would become our policy that in that committee review, if it's a roof replacement, it automatically comes before the whole commission.
Well,
In order to memorialize it and make it clear.
That may be, but the real question of whether representations are made to the review board or to the full commission is a matter of what's actually said in the application.
Correct.
And what's said in the application was something we wanted to beef up, if you'll recall, because we had different views about what was inspected and what wasn't inspected, and who was certifying and who was representing.
Right.
So whether it comes to the full commission or the review board, the real issue is
The
the.
point being that if it just goes through review, there's no resolution.
There's no record of it.
But presumably,
You get, if it's a decision of the full board, there is a,
no, yeah, of course, there's a resolution as.
resolution. The
Absolutely.
resolution can state on there, if original materials are discovered, must come back to
Yeah,
the board.
as could the review committee seeing the representations in an application that showed original materials. It's entirely possible to pass, I'm not arguing that it should not go in front of the full board. I'm just saying you could handle that application either way, as long as the application was complete and it said what it was supposed to say. Our problem is, is not necessarily the fact things happen in front of the review board versus the full commission, but that our applications are defective in that they don't allow, they don't require the search and the representations that we put into the revision. Well, you were part of that.
Yeah, I know, and I've been waiting 6 months since we.
And so have I, Corbin. I thought they were finalized and adopted.
And it's, I'm tired of getting phone calls from reputable people.
Well, I'm happy you get them, and I.
Saying that, well, how come this guy was able to do it on, and get rid of the
Yeah.
Cedar Shakes under.
I agree. I'm happy you get them and I don't, but I'm more interested in figuring out why what we produced and was commented on and finalized here hasn't been put into effect. And that to me is, and that's not a matter for discussion here.
Well, maybe it's should be part of this discussion.
Well, I don't think that we can get full answers with the people who are here.
We can get a full answer about the fee. If Bob has to prepare a resolution, it can't be a $75 fee. The cost of a full commission review is higher than an approval and review. $75 won't cover the cost of that level of review.
Well, it's not like I haven't got anything else to do with respect to the commission, but I'd like to figure out what happened to the revised form and the revised detailed instructions, which seem to have disappeared from the face of the earth over the last 4 or 5 months, or 4 months, or whatever it's been.
So Jim, do you feel that if the revised application addresses this effectively?
Well, not to what body it would be presented to, but if you remember and back up, our problem was that we had people saying, well, I didn't know I had to look.
So the application requires them to make a statement that they.
Absolutely. That's
Great,
what
okay,
the
then
revised one
it
did.
should address this so that they don't have to pay the additional fee.
John, have you seen the revised form? The
I
revised
have not, I'm
application?
asking.
No one
Okay,
has seen
so
it.
do you want me to put it on the agenda for the next meeting, Jim?
Be great.
Well, what I'd like to do is have us now focus on this, because if there are things that are objectionable that weren't objected to before, we better have the right thing that we finally adopt.
Yeah, I agree. I'd love to see that
I
expedited.
mean, the way I would have done this would have been, we did the drafts, we circulated them for comments, we took comments, and I would put down a motion that would adopt those forms. And we'd all be either happy or not, but we'd vote on it, and that would be it, and we'd use them.
So let's table this discussion until we review the full application at the next meeting. I would just like to add, I'd hate to see dragging that many more applicants to come before the whole board and making these meetings that much longer, ticking off an awful lot of people. I think that can be avoided if we look over the.
Yeah, to me, Tom, it's a question of whether the information appears properly in the application, and then we can decide whether it goes long or it goes short.
So guys, we can reconcile this if we just decide tonight that we would like to put this on the agenda for our next meeting. And Judy, if you could put in the packet for us prior to the next meeting, the copy of the application for us to review beforehand, we can pass a resolution at the next board meeting.
I mean, there were basically 3 important things that were worked on to enhance the application package. The first was just a general explanation of how the HPC related to how what what was the application process, how it related, and that was a sort of a discussion document. But the operative other documents were a revised application form with a revised materials checklist, and then a set of detailed instructions as to how to go about filling those things out in more detail than we've ever had.
Yeah,
and hopefully most of it was right.
No, I think we all remember reviewing those, but it was maybe 6 months ago, and it's not quite in my memory, so I think it'd be great to review them again. Yeah. And that way we can pass a resolution at the next, session.
I would hope so, John. I was hoping we would do that a while back.
Yeah, well, we didn't, so now we can move forward.
Of course, that's why this book's 10 years old, too.
Is there anything else we need to bring up tonight?
There is, and I hate to keep talking, but just to inform the commission that the Zoning Board of Adjustment Review Committee has been trying to meet and will meet to review at least 2 of the resolutions from the Zoning Board of Adjustment with respect to the kind of reaction this commission might have to it, or things that might need to be done in light of those reversals. But one of the things we found as a technical matter was that we had a great deal of difficulty trying to schedule non-live but Zoom-type meetings because there wasn't a Zoom subscription anymore. And rather than cause us to have to migrate to other platforms and other applications, we thought it would be appropriate for use by the HPC, by its committees, but mostly by committees, so that we're not authorized to have full meetings by Zoom anymore under the revisions to the law. But thought it would be important to be able to do committee and other meetings by Zoom, and for that purpose, wanted to have the HPC secure an unlimited Zoom subscription to make that platform available for more than 30-minute free meetings. So I'm saying that subject to any information that needs to be provided to the city, I would move that we authorize the commission to have a subscription for a full unlimited Zoom subscription, so that we can utilize that platform as we were used to utilizing it during our COVID times for future
Pay
meetings.
for that out of our budget
We would pay for it out of our budget. It's $150
for a year?
for a year. And
The reason we wouldn't share that with other boards?
I couldn't tell you, but the necessity is for us to do it as an HPC body now. So I would introduce that as a motion.
Moved by Jim, seconded by Janice? Okay, roll call vote.
Motion by Mr. Testa, seconded by Ms. Wilson Stridick. Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Coxwell?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson? Mr. Becker?
Yes.
I would suggest before we spend $150, we talk to the city manager and say, why not get this for all the boards?
Well, if we can avoid it, but if we can avoid it spending our budget money, fine. But it's my understanding the city's migrated over to, I'm going to call it OneDrive, TeamShare, and it's not a platform that I've used. It's not a platform most of us are familiar with. You may be, but it's a different app, and that's what the city's using, and that may be fine for them. But we're used to Zoom. And short of there being any technical objections, we know it works for us. It did really well, and the cost is modest. So yeah, if we can avoid paying the money, sure. But I'd like us to be on, to be able to say, short of that, we'd want to have a subscription the HPC can use.
Okay. Anything else?
Adjourn.
I didn't close the public portion, I don't think.
You did.
Did I? Okay, public portion closed. Motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Again, it's a